My name is John Comissiong, and I'm the president and owner of Security Transport Services. We are a prisoner transport firm, and we help law enforcement agencies execute warrants and move them from one state to another. I think the first thing is, do we have a clear understanding of the medical condition of the inmate that we're transporting? Sometimes that's difficult because of HIPAA laws, but our attempt is to capture the pertinent information that allows us to execute a safe and secure transport. And therefore, we do ask questions or try to phrase questions that are HIPAA compliant so that the medical personnel and our agents can converse openly about the issues we may face. When we go to a prison or jail to pick up an inmate, we typically ask the prisoner relevant questions and verify their information with the jail or prison so that we are aligned on what issues they currently have. It's a discussion between the officer, the inmate, and the jail to reconcile all the information so we can execute a safe transport, but then we are very clear on our responsibilities if in fact we have to provide medication during the transport. When we're in transport, the biggest thing our agents will tell you and that we emphasize is you have to take every kind of issue or pain of the inmate truthfully. If they're experiencing some discomfort, we have to have compassion and understand that situation is true. Be diligent about going through our records and understanding when they need medication so that we don't get into situations that we have to call for support. But in general, listening to the inmate, understanding what they've been through, what their medical sheet has is very important. Our agents are trained to, if, for instance, we get into an accident, we are calling emergency services to our location, or in fact, we are going to be dropping that inmate off at an emergency room and then asking for law enforcement to support us. I think the difference in terms of when we're dealing with inmates versus local law enforcement is local law enforcement is typically dealing with someone they've arrested and maybe there's a little combative nature between them. Our agents are more of, in a lot of ways, think of us as like an Uber driver. We're here to transport you safely. Because we do this on a constant basis, we are much more cognizant of what the impact of that inmate has to other people on our vehicle. We usually transport anywhere between 1 to up to 6 inmates on board. And so taking one inmate's concerns very seriously. And it's a big deal because we're also then trying to evaluate how his concern or his pain is affecting other people on board. And that's a big deal because we are transporting multiple people at a time as opposed to just one. So really listening to inmates, what their complaints are, trying to understand do they have a history of that in their medical file is very important for us because our goal is to transport in a safe manner and to make sure that inmates are comfortable on that trip from point A to point B. From a sitting standpoint, believe it or not, the luxury of being in a transport van helps us in that perspective. Every vehicle needs fuel. So in essence, we are typically stopping anywhere probably between 2 and 3 hours for fuel. That's the time that most of our officers will allow an inmate to get bathroom breaks, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Our officers are also trained to have a non-combative transport. We'll typically give them snacks, which then involve another stop. The goal of our transports is calmness, treating them with respect, and that allows us to, one, work in opportunities for them to stretch their leg during bathroom breaks, during meals. Also then, if we have to get other inmates, if the jail allows us to bring them in and let them use the bathroom in a controlled facility. And in those instances, the inmate can actually move around a bit. But most of the time for food breaks and fuel breaks is when an inmate can get up and stretch their legs and be able to move around. At STS, we always transport, regardless of the level of security for the inmate, with at least 2 armed agents. We will increase that level of support to 3, depending on the severity. Inmates with gang-related or escaped history, or if we feel potentially there's a risk of harming themselves, we can go up to 3. Also, we took the recommendation of the agency that hired us if they'd like to add more to that trip. All of our agents are gender specific, and we typically treat all inmates from a safety perspective as they're the most hardened criminal that there is. Because when you treat them all the same and you think that they are dangerous and they are violent, and from a security standpoint, you're always at the highest level of security and you're taking all the precautions necessary. There are different crime factors to help us understand our level of safety. We like to assume that they're violent or there's a high risk, and therefore our agents are always prepared to be dealing with situations if they occur. De-escalation is critical, and it starts, in my opinion, with your first interaction with the inmate, really trying to establish with them what the ground rules are during a transport, trying to establish this idea of security. We're here to do a job, but if you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. And that starts your trip off well. And the idea of reward. So typically what we like to do is we try to feed an inmate meals that they would like. Most of the time, if you've been incarcerated for 7 to 14 days, you've been eating jail food, which is not the greatest. Offering a choice of would you like pizza or McDonald's or Burger King is a big reward for them. With kindness and respect that we show each other, you reward them by letting them potentially pick a meal or letting the group say one day we'll do burgers, tomorrow we'll do pizza. If we're all together and willing to have a safe trip, then there's a time for a meal within reason that is fast food. But again, if it's fast food versus jail food, you pick fast food. Food is a big control factor, and we use that as a tool to make sure that we have this idea of respect and safe transport. First off, from a vehicle perspective, all of our vehicles are professionally outfitted for prisoner transport. They have a number of things to ensure that we can execute a transport in a safe, secure manner. They have cameras, night vision cameras, all the windows they can access are covered with a metal shield. All the child safety lights are installed. Anything that they can use as a potential weapon have been removed. So things like headrests have been removed. Sometimes cup holders, if they're not secured, you secure them in the vehicle. And so just get rid of things that they could use as weapons is the first thing. The second thing is our agents are required to inspect the vehicle every day of their trip. What they're looking for is one, making sure it's clean and sanitary. Two, do an inspection for contraband or for weapons, because again, inmates on a long transport are out of our control when at night when we take them into a facility to house them overnight. And so every day inspecting your vehicle and making sure it's clean and disinfected, to making sure it's free of contrabands or weapons, sure that the vehicle is safe and secure for the length of the transport. Fatigue is a huge issue when we're talking about prisoner transports. There's a lot of driving in our world, and teams could be on the road potentially 12, 14 hours a day, which is why we transport with two agents at any given time. They can take turns driving, which one to be driving and two, the other agent to be doing necessary paperwork, really monitoring what's going on in the back with the cameras that we have. Two agent teams reduce the overall risk from a fatigue standpoint of driving and gives one officer an opportunity to take a little downtime in between watching the inmate or driving. And then we feel like that's the most secure way to transport inmates. We do have emergency protocols in place. Every vehicle actually has an emergency protocol in the vehicle in multiple places that are written in our vehicles. They are installed actually at the sun visor level. They can pull out our emergency policies and procedures to reference them. We also have them digitally through one of our applications. Primarily, when we talk to officers about something goes wrong, it's pretty easy to remember. Your priorities are one, secure your inmates, secure the scene, reach out to local law enforcement, and contact the chief who is available 24 hours a day to help them during issues and emergencies. Talking to our chief as a third party, he can help walk you through what you want to be thinking about and helping you and your partner making sure that inmates are covered and maybe there's something wrong with the vehicle. Having a third party like the chief available to our team 24 hours a day helps them think about everything not only going on at the site, but kind of a larger picture of what should be happening as we try to navigate issues with local law enforcement and potentially state troopers. We document essentially every action we can that happens with an inmate. We are charged with their care, the ability to treat them humanely. From a documentation standpoint, the first thing we typically do is get an idea of their medical history. We document that. So if we have to provide medication on the road, we are clear on the dosage of frequency of the medication we have to provide. We have documentation in terms of their physical description. So again, if an inmate escapes, we can give that current latest physical description, a picture of that inmate to local law enforcement. Documentation around how often we fed them, bathroom breaks. Any interaction our agent has with that inmate has to get documented, not only for making sure that we treat them humanely, but also to ensure that if there's a potential lawsuit about our ability to take care of that inmate, we have documentation to prove the actions we've taken. What you realize is that there's lots of things we have to do that I don't think most people realize because we have an inmate for so long, like giving medication, like feeding them, like bathroom breaks. Think of if you have somebody in the jail, you have to do all that. Then you have a road deputy. You're mashing these two things together. And so it's a hodgepodge of watching them at taking them to the bathroom and feeding them, but also then securely moving them from point A to point B. So it's a movement of these jobs. I think the other thing, when medical situations arise, we are the first responders. If you're in a jail, you call in the doctor or the medical provider. There's someone there. I think the idea that my team not only has to be like a nurse, depending on that rapid situation, these guys are always solving. The biggest thing is understanding where you're at, where you need to go, and who can you rely on for help. I think is a bigger deal. Being professional and courteous and working in this business a long time, you've established relationships with a lot of police officers. So they're trying to help you out because they understand the nature of moving someone. The amount of certification and training that we have to have is pretty big. Like certification, gun training, DOT certification for drivers, making sure they're physically fit, background checks is a big thing about the job, and making sure we have the right skills to do the job, the right temperament to do the job. This idea of essentially being a truck driver, going from state to state, picking somebody up. It's big being away from your family, because these guys are typically on the road anywhere between 5 to potentially 14 days. And then they go back on the road every 2 days, right? Because we run a 365, 7-day a week, 24-hour-a-day business to support our partners in law enforcement. And insurance requirements, people would be aghast at the level of insurance we have to have. It's very specialized what we do. You can imagine the insurance from a liability standpoint, vehicle coverage standpoint. It's an enormous undertaking to, like I said, put the business, protect everyone here, but it's necessary for us to do our job. Thanks for watching today. I hope it's been helpful to you. If you have any questions, leave us a comment and be sure to like and subscribe.